Hello and welcome to Billy's Craft Room. Today's film I'm going to show you how to create a weathered wood paint effect. This is part of my Adventures in Acrylics workshop, which is available through the blog. Here's what the finished piece will look like. Unlike other weathered wood effects, this gives a flat finish, which is ideal if you want to use it for altered art projects where you want to stamp or write over them, and the board I'm working on has not been gessoed. For this project you will need some card to paint onto. I'm using mount board with a white backing. You will also need some acrylic paint. The one I've chosen is Winsor & Newton Galleria. I chose this because it has a flow formula which works well and has no odour. The colours I'm using are raw umber and also buff titanium. If you have any difficulty with the effects I'm creating today, you could also use De La Rowney's Kryler paint. That one is a heavy body paint, but it would work well on this particular technique. I'm going to apply the paint using a small scrap of car sponge. You'll need something to mix the paint on. I use a white enamel plate as they're easy to get hold of and also very easy to clean. Protect your table by using a craft sheet. It's also quite a good idea to protect your surrounding table with a wipe clean mat as well. The first colour I'm going to use is the buff titanium. I'd only put a small amount out, and I only put the colours out as I'm ready to use them. Acrylic paints do dry quite quickly, so you don't want to get too much paint out before you're ready to use it. Take your scrap of sponge and dab it into the paint. Dab off the excess paint onto a separate area of the palette. This works the paint into the sponge and will stop you picking up too much of a heavy application of paint when you come to apply it. Decide on the direction that you want your wood grain to go in. This is the direction in which you're going to apply your paint. I'm going to have my wood grain going this way. So I'm going to apply the paint by swiping it in that direction. Gently swipe across. You don't want to put much weight on the sponge. You're not trying to completely cover the board. Just pick up areas, hit and miss. This builds texture onto the piece. If you need to turn the board around, that's no problem. Just make sure that you're applying the paint in the same orientation. Here's how the board is looking after the first application of colour. You now need to set this aside to dry completely before you move on. Now that the earlier layer has dried, the next colour up is the raw umber. Work on a clean area of the car sponge and pick up a small amount of the dark paint. Like before, dab off onto the plate to blend the paint into the sponge and to prevent you picking up too much paint. Now going to apply the next colour in the same orientation as the wood grain, the same as the buff titanium went on. Start off by dragging the sponge very lightly across the board. If this was a brush, this would be known as the dry brush technique. There's a very small amount of paint going on with each layer, and you're just gradually building up the textures. Don't forget, if you turn the board around, to keep the paint going with the grain. Another way to apply texture is by dabbing the sponge gently onto the board. This will give a different effect to the swiping and is also worth trying. If you want more of a pronounced grain, gently squeeze the sponge and press a little firmer onto the board. Don't worry if this is looking a bit dark at this stage. With later layers, you'll be able to tone it down. Just remember to keep in the grain direction if you're turning your board. Here's how the board is looking at this point. You now need to set this aside to dry completely before you move on. For the best results with this technique, you want to break up any large areas of colour. If you have a large area of dark, go over it with the buff titanium. Any areas which are looking too pale, try adding some texture with the raw umber. To tone down some of those darker areas, if I now apply some buff titanium, you'll see how they've toned down. It's important to wait until the earlier layers have dried, otherwise the two colours will just blend in together and you'll get a different effect again. It's worth experimenting. It depends on the result that you're going for. Continue to layer your colours until you have an effect that you like. And here's a couple of finished panels that I painted using the weatherwood effect. These panels would make excellent book covers, but you can also use this technique for art journaling because it is flat. So you can stamp over the finished page or write over it or use image transfers as well. Today's tutorial is part of my online workshop, Adventures in Acrylics. If you like creating interesting backgrounds, surfaces and textures, playing with paints and mediums, then this workshop is for you. Check out the blog for more details. For more inspiration, please visit the blog on www.billiescraftroom.co.uk.